The forest breathed under the silver glow of the moon, every leaf shimmering as if the night itself were alive. Shadows stretched long, dancing between twisted trunks, while the wind carried whispers older than memory. In the heart of the village, hidden among moss-covered stones, stories of the cursed werewolf lineage curled like smoke through the air. Mothers hushed their children with warnings, lovers spoke in trembling voices, and pack members exchanged glances heavy with fear and awe. She moved silently along the cobblestone path, her small frame cloaked in a dark hood, every step deliberate. Eyes from windows followed her, the weight of expectation pressing against her chest. To them, she was fragile, a girl who could barely hold her own in the simplest of ceremonies. But she knew better. Strength hummed beneath her skin, coiled and patient, waiting for the moment the world would need to see it. The moonlight brushed against her face, revealing the faint silver streaks in her hair, a sign of her bloodline, though few dared speak it aloud. She tilted her head upward, letting the cool night air wash over her, and for a heartbeat, she imagined herself unbound by secrecy. One day they will all see. Footsteps echoed behind her. A shadow detached itself from the edge of the trees. Still wandering alone at night, a voice called, smooth, controlled, yet edged with curiosity. She didn't flinch, though her heart betrayed a faint thrill. You could say the same. She replied softly, voice almost lost in the rustling leaves. He stepped closer, the alpha of the pack, his presence a tidal wave she had long since learned to avoid. Eyes like amber fire studied her, searching for cracks in her carefully constructed mask. "I've never seen you at this hour," he said, most shy away from the woods after dusk. Her lips curved in a faint, enigmatic smile. "Perhaps I enjoy the company of shadows." For a moment, silence hung between them, thick with unspoken truths. Legends whispered of her lineage, powerful, dangerous, unyielding, yet she moved with the ease of someone ordinary, blending seamlessly into the night. Only he seemed to sense it, the subtle tremor beneath her calm, the way the moonlight caught just enough of her silver streaks to hint at a hidden force. The wind carried a distant howl, sharp and mournful, reminding her that the world beyond the village was restless. The alpha's gaze lingered, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He knew somehow that this fragile girl was anything but weak, and in that moment beneath the silver moon, the night whispered a promise, one that would unravel the careful lies she had told everyone, and perhaps even herself. The dawn crept into the village like a hesitant visitor, casting a muted gold over the pack's grand hall. Today was the annual ceremony, a ritual as old as the forest itself, where strength, lineage, and loyalty were measured under the watchful eyes of the alpha and the elders. The hall buzzed with anticipation, whispers ricocheting off stone walls, and eyes that never looked away from those who dared to step forward. She walked with careful steps, her head bowed, hands clasped in front of her. Every villager, every pack member, every rival scrutinized her. They expected weakness, they expected a stumble, and for appearances she would give it to them. Just enough. The ceremony began with the elders' chants, voices rising and falling like wind through the trees. When her name was called, a silence settled, sharp and suffocating. Her legs carried her forward, deliberate yet hesitant. Then, just as she reached the center of the hall, a loose stone betrayed her. Her foot slipped, she fell to her knees with a graceless thud, and a ripple of laughter cut through the room. Faces twisted in mockery. Clumsy little thing. Someone jeered, another whispered, "She'll never be pack material." Her cheeks burned with humiliation, yet she held her head high, letting the act of weakness cloak the power she kept hidden. From the shadows at the back of the hall he watched. The alpha's amber eyes were steady, focused, and unnervingly intense. Most would have laughed at her stumble, dismissed it as evidence of inferiority, but he lingered on her movements, on the subtle tension in her shoulders, the controlled lift of her chin. Something beneath the surface whispered to him, a spark he couldn't ignore. "Careful," he murmured to himself, though his voice was lost in the hall's din. She rose, knees trembling slightly, and offered a bow so graceful it contradicted the earlier fall. Murmurs of admiration mingled with lingering derision. The elders nodded, noting her submission, while rival shifters' eyes narrowed, sensing a weakness they thought they could exploit. Yet beneath it all, a quiet fire smoldered within her. She let the world see the stumble, the blush, the hesitation, but not the heart beating like a drum of power beneath her ribs. She let the alpha see a flicker of doubt in her guise, curious if he would notice, or if the others would remain blind. When the ceremony ended, the crowd's attention shifted elsewhere, leaving her momentarily alone in the echoing hall. His gaze found her once more before he disappeared into the shadows, a silent promise lingering between them, a question that would not be answered today. The whispers followed her like shadows. She acted weak. But why does he watch her so closely? And somewhere deep in her chest, a pulse of anticipation warned her that this stumble would not be the last time she would be under his scrutiny, or that her secret strength would demand recognition far sooner than she imagined. The night returned, draping the village in a quiet silver light, but the echoes of the ceremony lingered in every corner. She moved through the quiet streets, her steps soft, but her mind was anything but calm. The whispers of the pack ridicule, judgment, curiosity, clung to her like shadows, yet beneath the carefully crafted mask of fragility, a pulse of defiance throbbed, steady and unyielding. He was there again, always observing. From the edge of the tree line, the alpha's amber eyes tracked her with unwavering intensity. Most would have dismissed her after today's humiliation, but not him. He saw the subtle grace behind the stumble, the restrained tension in her muscles, the quiet fire in her gaze. "Why do you watch me?" she murmured under her breath, though he was far enough to not hear. Still, the words were a confession, an acknowledgement of the unspoken connection that had begun to weave itself between them. The forest seemed alive tonight, leaves whispering secrets only the night could carry. She paused near a small clearing, sensing movement, subtle shifts in the shadows, and the faint, almost imperceptible glances of other pack members. Rival shifters, they had been watching her too, their curiosity mixed with jealousy. Whispers of her lineage and hidden strength fluttered through the trees like moths drawn to dangerous fire. Her fingers brushed against a silver pendant hidden beneath her cloak, a talisman of her bloodline, its power dormant but humming faintly in response to the alpha's gaze. The realization struck her. He wasn't the only one who noticed. Every glance, every subtle word passed through the pack like ripples, feeding curiosity and envy alike. From his perch in the shadows, the alpha's expression darkened, a storm of questions and intrigue swirling behind his amber eyes. He had seen the stumble, the facade of weakness, but he also sensed what others could not, the strength she carried quietly, restrained yet formidable, and it fascinated him. "Careful who you trust," he muttered to himself, tension coiling in his chest. A rival shifter had already begun weaving threads of suspicion, ready to manipulate perception against her. Yet he felt an unshakable pull, a need to guard her, to understand the layers of strength hidden beneath her fragile guise. The forest exhaled around them, a low sigh of wind through the trees. She adjusted her cloak, unaware that his gaze lingered unwavering and that every motion, every secret was being catalogued. Somewhere deep within, both of them knew this was only the beginning. Observations would turn to questions, questions to confrontations, and confrontations to truths that could no longer remain hidden. And in that quiet tension, under the silver-lit canopy, the first threads of desire and danger began to intertwine, invisible yet unbreakable. The forest was restless that night, shadows stretching and twisting as if alive, whispering warnings that few could hear. She moved with purpose, the events of the ceremony still burning at the edges of her mind. The mockery, the whispers, the lingering stares, it was all fuel for what she would become. Her heart beat steady beneath the cloak of her weakness, the quiet rhythm of someone who had lived long in hiding, waiting for the moment her strength would no longer be denied. A sudden commotion shattered the stillness. A rival pack, bold and reckless, had trespassed near the village boundaries, drawn by rumors of her power. They did not know what they would awaken. "Stay behind me," she whispered under her breath, though no one was near to hear. Her pulse quickened, but not with fear. Anticipation. She felt the familiar coiling of energy beneath her skin, the dormant strength of her lineage stirring awake. From the shadows, the Alpha emerged silently, his eyes widening slightly as he saw the tension in her stance. "You shouldn't," he began, but the words died on his lips. She had already moved, a blur of motion and precision that none of the pack could have predicted. The intruders had underestimated her, laughing and sneering, believing her fragile exterior was truth. But as she stepped into the clearing, the moonlight caught the silver streaks in her hair, igniting an aura of raw power. She didn't strike with rage, but with purpose, a controlled force that left her enemies reeling. Branches cracked underfoot as she moved with grace and lethal efficiency, the forest itself seeming to bend to her will. The Alpha's amber eyes narrowed, a storm of astonishment and desire flickering in their depths. He had sensed something extraordinary, yes, but this was beyond what he imagined. She was no ordinary mate, not just strength, but command, presence, a fire that could not be tamed. "Who are you?" he whispered, the question more to himself than to her. Her gaze flicked toward him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Someone you should have been paying attention to all along," she replied softly, her voice carrying over the shocked intruders. Every word was measured, every movement precise, yet beneath it all was a thrill she could not hide, the thrill of finally revealing her truth. The rival shifters retreated, stumbling over roots and their own fear, leaving the clearing echoing with silence. She turned back to the Alpha, chest rising and falling, the weight of her revelation settling between them. He stepped closer, his presence a force that matched hers, and for the first time, neither pretended. He began, voice low, nearly lost in the wind. "Stronger than anyone imagined, stronger than me," a shiver of triumph, and something else passed through her, respect, desire, recognition. The quiet defiance she had worn like armor now gleamed as undeniable truth. And he saw it all. In the shadows of the moonlit forest, their eyes locked, the space between them charged with unspoken acknowledgement. The night hummed with possibility, and for the first time, she knew the game had changed. The pack would never see her the same way again. Neither would he. The night settled like a velvet curtain over the village, shadows pooling in every corner. The forest hummed with life, and the moonlight spilled silver over the winding paths she traveled, cautious yet unafraid. Her steps were light, practiced, almost invisible, but tonight the forest felt alive in a different way. Every rustle of leaves, every whispered wind seemed to echo with anticipation. From the tree line, amber eyes watched her. He was always there, never intruding, yet always present, a silent guardian and an enigma she couldn't ignore. She felt the pull of him even before she saw him, a magnetic force that made her pulse quicken and her chest tighten. "You shouldn't be out here alone." His voice finally broke the silence, low and rich with unspoken concern. She tilted her head, hiding a small smile beneath her hood, "And yet, here you are, watching. Perhaps you enjoy the danger as much as I do." He stepped closer, careful, measured, aware that any movement could betray the storm brewing between them. "It's not the danger I'm concerned with," he admitted. "It's you, always you." Her heart skipped. Not because of fear, but because of the raw intensity in his gaze. She had acted weak, stumbled for appearances, yet here he was, seeing past every mask, every layer she had built to protect herself. She wanted to tell him so much, yet the words caught in her throat. The rules of the pack, the scrutiny of their peers, the whispers of rivals, everything warned against this forbidden closeness. A breeze rustled the trees, carrying with it a faint scent, his scent, and her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She looked away, adjusting her cloak, but the heat of his gaze lingered. "Why do you hide from me?" he asked, his voice a whisper that slid into her thoughts. "Why pretend weakness when I can see the truth?" Her fingers brushed against the pendant at her neck, a quiet reminder of the power she still kept partially veiled. "Because some truths," she said softly, "are dangerous, not for me, but for those who can't understand." He nodded slowly, understanding yet unyielding. "And yet you allow me to watch, even in shadows." A silent acknowledgement passed between them. Neither spoke of the desires flaring just beneath the surface, the pull of attraction that dared not speak its name. Their closeness was a dance of restraint, each glance, each breath, charged with unspoken longing. A distant howl split the night air, a reminder that the world beyond their private tension was still dangerous. She straightened, masking the flush rising to her cheeks, and yet she knew their paths were now irrevocably intertwined. As he melted back into the shadows, leaving only the memory of amber eyes burning into hers, she felt the weight of what was forbidden, and the thrill of what was inevitable. The night had changed, and with it, everything between them. The forest air was thick with tension, carrying whispers of danger that only the most attuned could sense. She moved cautiously, aware that not all eyes upon her were curious or admiring. Some watched with envy, others with malice. Among the pack, one rival's intent had begun to crystallize, a jealousy sharp enough to pierce the night itself. He had been waiting, crouched near the edge of the clearing, hidden beneath shadows. Her every movement was deliberate, yet he sensed the brewing storm long before she did. The rival, a shifter known for cunning and cruelty, had been plotting, weaving a web designed to exploit her supposed weakness. She paused, sensing it. The hairs along her neck prickled, her instincts whispering danger. A trap had been laid, subtle and insidious. She clenched her fists beneath her cloak, trying to calm the surge of power beneath her skin. This time there would be no pretending. From the tree line the alpha emerged silently, his eyes scanning the surroundings, muscles tensed like coiled steel. "Stay close," he murmured, voice low, carrying authority and warning. She nodded, though her pride bristled. She did not need protection, but she would accept it this time. The rival stepped forward, eyes glittering with malice, and a trap snapped into motion. A snare hidden beneath a carpet of leaves. Her foot caught it, and in a heartbeat the world shifted. Branches cracked, rocks shifted, and the sudden jolt sent her sprawling, caught in the delicate web of the trap. Gasps rippled through the shadows as the pack noticed the unfolding danger. The rival laughed softly, smug and cruel. "Fragile, just as I thought," he sneered, but she was far from fragile. Muscle and instinct surged together, and with a twist of strength, she tore free, leaving the snare dangling useless in her wake. The forest seemed to bend around her, the latent power of her bloodline responding to threat. Leaves swirled, shadows danced, and her eyes flashed silver beneath the moonlight. The alpha moved like lightning, stepping between her and the rival. His presence was a shield, his amber gaze a warning. "Enough," he commanded, voice slicing through the tension like a blade. The rival faltered, sensing the raw force between them, yet unwilling to retreat entirely. She met the alpha's gaze, a brief flicker of connection passing between them. Respect, recognition, gratitude, yet beneath it lingered something more dangerous. Desire tempered by restraint, attraction sharpened by risk. The rival hissed, retreating into the shadows, knowing this was not over. Rumors would spread of her power, whispered warnings of what she could do. The pack would watch, some with awe, others with fear. But tonight, the truth had been revealed. She was no pawn, no fragile mask to be toyed with. She was a force, and the alpha had seen it, and so had her enemies. As the night reclaimed silence, she drew a deep breath, feeling the lingering heat of danger and the unspoken connection with the alpha. The game had changed, and every shadow now held new stakes. Moonlight spilled like liquid silver across the forest floor, filtering through the dense canopy and painting patterns on moss-covered stones. She moved with deliberate grace, each step measured, each motion a study in control. The forest was her sanctuary, a place where no judgment lingered and no eyes whispered expectations. Here, she was free to explore the depths of her power and hone the strength she had long concealed. Branches bent softly underfoot as she ran through intricate sequences, the air around her vibrating with energy she barely allowed herself to wield. Every movement was precise, controlled, and yet fluid, the dance of a predator mastering its inner fire. Her breath came steady, heart synchronized with the rhythm of the forest. The moon seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, casting a glow that highlighted the faint silver streaks in her hair. Unbeknownst to her, he had found her. From a shadowed ridge, the alpha watched, silent and calculating. Amber eyes narrowed, tracking every motion, every controlled strike, every quiet exhalation. He had seen her strength before, glimpsed it in the chaos of a trap, but this was mastery. She paused for a moment, hands on her knees, feeling the energy thrumming beneath her skin. A bead of sweat slid down her temple, catching the moonlight like liquid crystal. And then she sensed him, the quiet shift in the air, the almost imperceptible warmth of his presence threading through the clearing. "You train well," he said, voice low, barely disturbing the night's stillness. She stiffened, eyes darting toward him, a flicker of surprise, and something else, passing through her gaze. "I didn't hear you approach." "I didn't want to announce myself," he replied, stepping closer, his boots silent on the forest floor. "But I had to see you in truth." She straightened, chest rising, pulse quickening not with fear, but with awareness of the intensity radiating from him. "And what do you see?" she asked softly, masking both curiosity and caution. "Strength, control, power you've hidden from everyone," he said, amber eyes meeting hers with a fire she couldn't ignore, and vulnerability, but not weakness. A faint smile tugged at her lips. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge that yes, he could see her fully, her skill, her control, her hidden fire, and even the moments when she let her guard drop. The intimacy of being observed so completely sent a shiver through her spine. The night around them seemed to pause, the forest holding its breath as two forces, equally strong, equally magnetics, stood mere paces apart. She felt the pull between them, the unspoken acknowledgement that their connection had deepened in ways neither could ignore. The moonlight glinted off the silver streaks in her hair as she turned back to her training, yet the awareness of his gaze lingered like heat on her skin. And in the quiet of the silver forest, a new truth settled between them. Her strength was no longer hidden, and he would never look at her the same way again. The forest was quiet, almost unnaturally so, as the first rays of dawn broke through the canopy. Mist clung to the undergrowth, curling around roots and stones like restless spirits. He moved silently through the shadows, amber eyes sharp and unwavering, tracking her even from a distance. The nights of observation, the moments of hidden scrutiny, they all culminated in this single, undeniable truth. She was his mate, but acknowledgement brought no relief. Instead, it sparked a storm within him. Pack rules were clear, mates were sacred, but their union had boundaries, traditions, and consequences he could not ignore. And yet, he could not deny the pull, the magnetic force drawing him to her, the recognition that strength, courage, and fire resided in her in ways he had never seen before. She trained again beneath the pale moonlight, movements fluid, precise, yet softened by the faint hesitation of someone accustomed to hiding her power. The silver streaks in her hair caught the moonlight, a signal flare of the extraordinary bloodline she carried. Every step, every breath, every controlled strike reminded him that she was unlike anyone he had ever encountered, and that the pack's perception of weakness was a lie. He stepped closer, boots silent on the damp forest floor. She sensed him immediately, turning with a subtle grace, eyes meeting his. "You shouldn't follow me," she said softly, voice steady but laced with something he could not name. Invitation or warning, perhaps both. "I couldn't help myself," he admitted, amber gaze locking with hers. "I see it now. Everything I've been trying to understand, the strength you carry, the power you've hidden, the fire." Her chest rose and fell rapidly, but not from exertion. She studied him, noting the tension in his jaw, the storm behind his eyes, and the unspoken longing that had always simmered beneath his composure. "And yet you hesitate," she murmured. "Rules, tradition, pride, yes," he said, voice low and ragged with restraint. "And you're more than a mate, more than I imagined. You're strong, fearless, and extraordinary. The pack will resist, and I will resist, yet I can't. I can't ignore it any longer." Her heart skipped a beat at his confession, the vulnerability he never allowed himself to show. "Then what will you do?" she whispered, almost afraid of the answer. "I'll find a way," he said, stepping closer, the heat of his presence pressing against her like the first touch of a storm. "No rules, no rivals, no tradition. Nothing will stop me from claiming you. You're mine, whether the pack accepts it or not." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. She felt the pull between them, electric and undeniable, her own desire mirrored in his amber eyes. For the first time, the mask she wore, weak, fragile, cautious, felt unnecessary. In the moonlit silence of the forest, with the pack's whispers and rivalries miles away, two hearts recognized each other fully. Strength, vulnerability, and passion entwined, promising a storm that neither rules nor tradition could contain. And he knew, with a certainty that shook him to the core, she was his mate. The night of the blood moon descended like a crimson tide, draping the village and forest in an eerie, almost otherworldly glow. Shadows stretched long and jagged, and the pack gathered in the clearing, hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. Tonight was not just a ceremony. It was a test, a time when hidden truths were exposed, alliances revealed, and destinies intertwined. She moved cautiously, the red, tinged moonlight catching the silver streaks in her hair, a reminder of the power she had fought to keep concealed. The forest seemed unnervingly still, the usual chorus of nocturnal life muted as if even nature sensed the danger that lurked tonight. From the shadows, the rival watched, his gaze sharp and calculating, a predator waiting for the perfect moment. Jealousy had festered in him for months, growing into something dark, something dangerous. He had seen her strength, glimpsed the bond forming between her and the alpha, and it had poisoned his mind with envy and spite. A subtle signal passed unnoticed to the rival's accomplices. Branches snapped in strategic places, snares clicked into hidden traps, and whispers of misinformation spread through the pack. All eyes were distracted by the ceremonial rituals, unaware that a carefully orchestrated betrayal had begun. She sensed it too late. A hidden snare sprang beneath her feet, yanking her into a tangle of ropes that dug cruelly into her skin. The rival stepped forward, a triumphant sneer curling his lips. "Thought you could hide your power forever," he hissed. "Let's see if the mighty alpha can save you now." Her pulse surged, but fear did not dictate her movements. Muscle and instinct took over. She twisted again, and with a burst of strength, tore through the trap, leaving the ropes shredded around her. But the effort left her exposed, vulnerable to the rival and his hidden allies. Amber eyes blazed from the tree line. The alpha moved like lightning, cutting through the shadows, positioning himself between her and the danger. Enough, his command carried through the clearing, a roar of authority that sent shivers down the spines of every pack member. The rival faltered, but the chaos had already begun. Several accomplices emerged, eyes gleaming with malice, forcing the pack into disarray. She met the alpha's gaze, heart hammering, and felt the unspoken promise in his stance. He would protect her no matter the cost. With a surge of determination, she combined strength and instinct, moving with precision that left the enemies off balance. Branches cracked underfoot, and the forest itself seemed to bend to her will. Yet every moment the danger escalated, and she could feel the rival's focus sharpening, targeting her as if sensing the key to destroying both her and the alpha's bond. The blood moon hung overhead, red and watchful, bathing the clearing in light that made every shadow dangerous, every movement critical. She could see it in the alpha's eyes, the tension, the desperation, the unyielding need to protect her. And in that gaze, she understood the stakes. This was no longer about ceremony, tradition, or rivalry. It was survival, trust, and the undeniable pull between them. If she failed, it would cost more than pride. It could cost everything. And in the crimson glow of the blood moon, she realized that the battle ahead would not just test her strength, but the very bond that had begun to grow between her and the alpha. The forest was alive with chaos, the blood moon casting everything in crimson and shadow. Branches snapped, leaves fluttered in frantic motion, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with the tension of imminent battle. She moved like a tempest, muscles coiled, senses heightened, every motion precise as she faced the rival shifters who had dared to threaten her pack and the alpha she had grown to trust and desire. He was there too, moving with controlled ferocity, amber eyes blazing as he positioned himself to protect her at every turn. The pack had rallied behind them, forming a protective circle, but the rival's cunning had drawn them into a trap where instinct, speed, and raw power were all that could keep them alive. The rival lunged at her with sharp claws, teeth bared and a sneer that promised malice. She twisted, catching his wrist mid-strike, her strength leaving him off balance. The forest floor became a blur of motion, fallen leaves, snapping branches, and the echo of growls that vibrated through the night. Every clash was a test not just of power, but of strategy, courage, and determination. The alpha moved like a shadow alongside her, his hands and claws a blur of precision as he defended her from attacks she couldn't intercept. Their eyes met briefly, and in that fleeting glance, a world of unspoken communication passed between them. Trust, recognition, desire, and an understanding that the bond they had been nurturing was now forged in fire. "You're stronger than I imagined." He growled through gritted teeth as he intercepted a blow meant for her. "And you're not as predictable as I thought." She shot back, ducking and spinning, using the momentum to disarm another rival. The danger and adrenaline sharpened her focus, heightening every sense, every thought, every reaction. A rival lunged again, this time targeting the alpha, and she reacted without hesitation, diving into the path of the attack. Her claws met his, the force of the impact sending both shifters staggering backward. He stumbled, caught by her strength and timing, and for a heartbeat the world slowed, the chaos around them fading, leaving only the unspoken tension crackling between them. Her chest heaved, hair damp with sweat, eyes blazing in the blood moon's crimson glow. He stepped closer, their proximity electrifying, yet the fight had not ended. The rival snarled, eyes wild with desperation, and launched a final, reckless attack. Together, she and the alpha countered, their movements perfectly synchronized, an unspoken dance of power and trust. The rival fell, finally subdued, and silence descended, broken only by the ragged breaths of the pack and the soft rustle of leaves. Victory was theirs, hard, won and undeniable. She turned to the alpha, chest heaving, and met the intensity of his gaze. Amber eyes burned into hers, a mixture of admiration, relief, and something far more intimate. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice low, almost hoarse, though his presence radiated strength and dominance. "I am," she said, voice steady but tinged with awe. "Thanks to you." He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, the air thick with tension, heat, and unspoken longing. "No," he whispered, "thanks to us. Together." And in that moment, under the crimson glow of the blood moon, surrounded by the aftermath of battle, the unbreakable bond between them crystallized. Strength, courage, desire, and trust intertwined, forming a connection neither rules nor rivals could sever. The night had tested them, pushed them to the brink, and revealed truths about power, loyalty, and love. And as their hands brushed, fingers entwined, and hearts raced in unison, they both knew that this confrontation was only the beginning of a lifetime bound together by strength, passion, and destiny. The first light of dawn spilled over the village, softening the shadows left by the chaos of the blood moon night. The forest, once alive with tension and danger, now exhaled in relief, leaves rustling gently as though whispering congratulations. She walked through the clearing, shoulders steady, eyes bright with quiet triumph. The events of the past nights, the ridicule, the betrayals, the battles, had led to this moment a reckoning not just of power, but of recognition. The alpha stood waiting, amber eyes tracking her with a warmth and intensity that no words could contain. The pack gathered slowly around them, tentative glances exchanged, whispers of awe and respect weaving through the ranks. They had seen her strength firsthand. They had watched her prove what they had once doubted, and now none could deny it. She met the alpha's gaze, a mixture of pride and vulnerability, knowing that this time there was no pretense, no masks to hide behind. The forest seemed to pulse with the rhythm of her heartbeat, the latent power she had always carried now fully acknowledged. "You've done more than survive," he said softly, stepping closer, amber eyes scanning her from head to toe with quiet reverence. "You've claimed your place, not just beside me, but within this pack, and I—" His voice faltered slightly, emotion threading through the strength he always exuded. "I claim you as my mate, as my equal, as the one I trust with everything." Her chest swelled, emotion rising like a tide she could no longer contain. The journey had been long, the trials relentless, but in his gaze she found affirmation, desire, and a promise that had been unspoken but always present. "Then let it be," she whispered, her voice steady yet trembling, carrying both strength and surrender. He stepped closer, the distance between them collapsing, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. The pack watched silently as two forces, equally strong, equally unyielding, stood together, a unity forged in trial, desire, and destiny. Hands met, fingers intertwined, and in that simple contact, a lifetime of unspoken longing, mutual respect, and fierce love was declared. Around them the pack bowed subtly, acknowledging her strength and the bond that could no longer be ignored. Rival shifters who had once whispered against her now looked with a mixture of awe and grudging respect. The forest itself seemed to celebrate, sunlight filtering through the trees like a blessing. He leaned close, voice low, almost a growl of intimate possession. "You are mine, strong, fearless, and extraordinary, and together nothing will ever threaten us again." She smiled, a spark of triumph and relief in her eyes. "And you are mine," she replied, voice soft yet unwavering, the rhythm of her words carrying the promise of unbreakable trust and shared destiny. Under the light of the rising sun, amidst the gentle rustle of the forest and the approving murmurs of their pack, they stood together, mates, equals, bound by strength, love, and destiny. The trials had forged them, the battles had tested them, and now, at last, the world could see the truth. The strength she held was not just in her power, but in her courage, her heart, and the unyielding bond she had claimed. The moonlight may have faded, but their story, of love, strength, and destiny, was only just beginning.